Hey, playing another game at 2600 right now. This is going to be another, this is the last of the pre-recorded games I have, so after this, it will all be live, and will all be live commentary. It's all uploads. We picked Merlin. Jack Giant, I think, is pretty good early game. Merlin is sort of, it's a larger buff, but you have to do a little work for it. It's +2/+1 instead of +0/+2 for all your front line, although it's +2/+1 for um, an individual character. But if you so Jack Giants is always giving +0/+8 at max, so Merlin, if you cast it 3 times, is giving more stats. This is sort of a wonky way to measure anything, obviously, but here we are. So if you want to maximize your turn 2, what you can do is just buy the cost reduction, and then on turn 2 buy 3 things, and you'll just concede the turn 1, but get 3 things. I don't do that here because we'd be buying a spell without anything on board, so we wouldn't get the Merlin buff. And secondly, if we did that, um, we lose the first round, and the Fanny, the dwarf support, isn't particularly interesting, so we're not particularly interested in grabbing that, although I think we end up grabbing one here. This is a pretty standard turn 2 play. If you happen to get the gold, I think golden apple maybe it's called, sometimes it's pretty good to buy 2 things, especially with Merlin. We get the buff on our Slay character, meaning we might get extra gold. Again, we get the Fanny, so we don't have any dwarfs to buff, but we're still putting 2/2 stats on the board there. So that's what we do. Instead of the 1/1, we could have taken the 1/1. It just makes it a little weaker right now, and since we're probably not going to keep either of these, we're just going for strength. So here we'll get the win just because we have our ranged character attacking last. We had more characters on the board because we were able to buy 2. Here again, I think we were able to get Cinderella, get the apple. That's the plan, right? Get the apple, trigger the Cinderella, trigger the Merlin. We can buy Tiny and get the buff off the support. It's important not to like overplay for synergies. Basically, buying the Tiny is just like buying an 8/3. It's not like you don't get anything beyond the stats. Sometimes it's sort of tempting to try to get synergies, but all you really need to look at is the end result. So getting an 8/3 is pretty strong. I mean, otherwise we're just getting the 1/1. But it's nothing beyond that. Having a couple dwarfs here isn't. I don't think we're going to end up going dwarfs. So it's just important not to get too invested in just random synergies you're not going to end up with. Although here we do find the second Franny, so we end up just grabbing that just in case we want to get a double. I think we have one, so we want to cast a spell just because we get the buff. So I think we cast it on I forget what the ranged person is called, and then we have a chance to get another dwarf. So we just have a board full of just sort of nothing special in terms of characters, but we're getting the Slay buffs, which means our board is getting filled. I'm just taking the chance of maybe getting a lucky hit off the frog. The Cinderella is not super powerful. Having Tweedle, I think it's Tweedledee, and it transforms to Tweedledum, in front of 2 dwarf supports means that we get double value off the supports. And, we're getting closer to Cinderella. We keep getting the Slay buffs, and we have a full board. We've taken a little damage, but I think it's entirely off the golden apples. So we're in a decent spot here. They get a hit, but don't get the Slay. We do get the Slay. And do they? Oh, no. See, because the Tweedledee spawns, we don't get the attack with the frog. Otherwise we would have got the transform, which would be nice. Here, it's probably worthwhile just to grab that. If you can upgrade the cat, if you're gonna keep the cat in, it's worth upgrading. Here, I just figure we'll give it a little more health. Although I think giving it health turns it good, which means the Minotaur no longer gives it attack, which I think I didn't realize. And that makes it harder to slay. We put in the tree folk because it's sort of a way to get persistent buffs. I guess, sometimes you get buffs within the round, like the supports will do, but if you can get persistent buffs, it can help you. If you're strong, it can help you carry over that strength to later rounds. Here we're just trying to figure out how to maneuver our characters. I think about putting the second cat in to try to get more slays, but it's just we're losing so many stats by doing that. We're just trying to get the tree folk procs. We might be able to get, if we get the slay cat to get a couple hits, maybe it can buff its attack in addition to its toughness, which has been buffed. So right here, so it goes up to 4 attack. Of course, it's attacking these giant dragons. And I think we're going to lose this pretty badly, it looks like. Although, with the way, with the way these attacks are working, it looks like we're going to tie. So they had a dragon's nest and an upgraded dragon, which with the fates gives +5/+5. And they also had a second dragon, so they were getting a lot of value out of a level 2 treasure. They were getting +10/+10 out of a level 2 treasure, which is a lot more than you usually get. We're going to take some more damage here just to get the Cinderella to buff. And then I just take the level 3 treasure in 3 turns. I'm not sure if that's good or if it's just like you lose too much by waiting, but otherwise we're just getting extra health. Here we finally upgrade the cat. I don't know. We take the first attack because we have a slay character. I previously recorded a video where I thought the third character dictated what alignment it was, because normally this is an evil character, but we turned it good. But it might just be that the buff persists, so if you apply any change, it persists. Might be the case. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm still learning this game. So here we have another chance to regeneration, but we have a slay. We have a second slay character now in that may end up hitting something. So I think we're just going to take the chance to try to get a couple extra gold. I like trying to get extra gold. You can really jump ahead with some weird things. Unfortunately, we don't get any hits here. And because our creatures aren't surviving the first hits, we're not getting any value off the tree folk. And it looks like we're going to lose this fight by just 1 minion, so take a little extra damage. Only 4 though. We're still at 30, which puts us about middle of the pack. We think about buying the kidnap. The kidnap just basically gives you a minion that your opponent has, so it's already kind of pre-vetted for being decent. And then we also get the spell cast for the Merlin. So we want to keep trying to cast spells if we can. We don't go too in on it because it's not super great. Here, my thought is that we can try to get the gold dwarf. We can maybe get this tiny. We have a cheap spell. Maybe we can get the doubly. We have sort of a few options in terms of trying to transition to a more dwarf focused comp, I think is my current thought. I don't know if that's a good idea really, just because we have Fanny, which is like a good early game character. If you have dwarfs, it's a good support. It gives +2/+2 to 2 different things, and these spawn, so it's a good value. But it's not like you don't build a comp around it. It's not going to be in the final dwarf comp. Most low-level characters aren't, but it's just like you shouldn't try to build your comp around the 2 drop that you upgraded. You should try to build it around like the 4 or 5 drop that you upgraded, or the treasure you got, which are usually, higher level treasures or more build-arounds. So, this person has a very big board, and it looks like we're just sort of gonna get run over by some of the larger characters, although at least we're trading off with some things, which maybe gives us... We take a little less damage, but yeah, we're still losing the fight, taking 8. Which is fairly substantial. So we buy this again because I like gold. buffing that because it helps us get more gold. No, Merlin can hit things on the bench, so if you're going to play with Merlin, you might be best off not keeping stuff on your bench if you're not going to use it. That tree folk ended up just being not good. We didn't get much value out of that. I don't know why we go for the dragon here. It might just be better to grab like a Medusa. We sort of have this dwarf comp. The thing about Fanny is that like it only buffs 2 other dwarfs. So if you're trying to go for dwarfs, and say in this instance we have 3 dwarfs in front, it just like doesn't give us extra value here. So I don't know. It's hard to like lean into a comp where it's only buffing a couple of things, because if you try to, the heavier you play into that comp, the value you're getting is just sort of flat, regardless of how heavy you're playing into it. You need other things that play with dwarfs, and those things don't necessarily play with Fanny at all until you start getting, like if you get angry, then having the Fanny in the back row is fine, because it makes Angry able to take more hits, and Angry will buff that once it gets into combat later. Getting that hit's pretty good. It would have been better if it was an 0-1, obviously, because, you know, getting the free kill for the Lightning Dragon is nice, but this person's comp is, I mean, it's based around the Vulture. Obviously, the Vultures getting huge is a big part of what they're trying to do, but it's also based around just spawning things in front that will get the buffs. So, what did we level up? Oh, we finally got the treasure to proc, and we just figure since we have this spellcast thing, I'm just going to, since we have the spellcast power from Merlin, something that lets us cast more spells is pretty good. I don't know if it was the right choice, but the level 3 treasures aren't particularly interesting. I usually grab the chicken just to have it, although it's worth noting that, like I said, with Merlin, it's not necessarily good to keep a random bench. Here we grab something to get the 5 power. We see an Angry, we see the triple here. We can get our first character 10 attack, which I think leads us to... So, this is, I should probably get rid of the crystal ball here, because the rest of the things play together so well. And here I'm just really trying to figure out what I'm doing in terms of a board. We didn't buy the Angry, which I probably should have done. I'm just casting a spell because we have a little extra gold. I should probably be trying to figure out how we can get the Angry. And since we have the cursed ball, maybe we can keep casting things as long as we're casting targeted spells. So I'm just doing that on the Lancelot. Lancelot just needs to get a couple hits, but this person just has giant minions, so we're not going to be able to really do anything with this. And this gets the worst hit, so we don't even get that slay. That would have been a nice 2 gold. That doesn't survive, so we don't get that gold. So this is just really a bad thing for us. We're only going to take, looks like 8, right? So that's not the worst in the world, but we really just got not great hits that whole time. We don't have any evil characters because we turned both our evil characters good so far, so we can't take advantage of that nice one. We didn't get any slays, and we have a treasure that gives slays extra gold, so we didn't get to take advantage of that. I'm casting this to get up to 24, which means if I just trigger 1 slay, I'll have that level 5 treasure. And then I just bought these 2 mummies. Mummies are super good mid-game because they do, they do 4 damage to everything. So if they go off, they do like 28 damage, especially if they go off early. They do 8 damage to, 4 damage to 7 things, which is really good. And often the opponent's backline, early enough, and depending on when it is in the game, but if you trigger 1 or 2 of those, you could take out the whole backline, which is often the supporting minions or the ranged minions, and it just gives you a big opportunity to sort of cheese someone out in a fight. So I go for mummies. I probably go for mummies too aggressively. There used to be the copycat build where books and mummies were pretty good. Books are still pretty good sometimes, but mummies were pretty good at mid-game. You can get like copycat and mummies and just wipe entire boards pretty easily. So like here we're taking out one thing completely with it. The Lancelot will get the proc here, which is nice. Unfortunately, we didn't take out their range character, but I think this allows us to trade. So we see the mummy is like pretty powerful even in this situation. The fates are pretty good mid game because they get a static bonus off everything. So here we sort of have a decision to make. We don't have much summoning, so getting the 15/15 instead isn't anything special. The Tree of Life is pretty good if you have high health cards, which we don't really have. If we're getting this, it's just for the Tweedledum. And I guess that's sort of what we're going for here. I don't really know what we're doing. I think we just sort of got a bad treasure pool there, and I wasn't sure what direction I wanted to go in. If I just grab the chicken to hold on to, just in case. I see a book, which I usually go for, but I guess I audibled off of that here. I want to cast this, but I just don't know like what we're trying to get out of this. So this, interestingly, the Merlin and the Curse Bowl trigger off even the thing that just kills your character because it does target. I don't buy the XP because getting to 6 right here isn't, doesn't do anything. I try to buy this, but I don't have enough, and I'm getting really confused for a while. Then I finally figured out it just gives a buff to all our dwarfs, and it's a spell that we can trigger, and I just figured that's enough value to squeeze out of there. Yeah, unfortunately, Mummy. So Mummy can trigger things that trigger off damage, which means that something like Broccoli is pretty good against it. I think here we'll just get the tie, although we get the Slay trigger, so we get 2 gold. This was the first place person who has 0 treasures, which is really interesting. You don't often see a first place person with 0 treasures. I think I'm thinking of taking this to buff all my dwarfs, but what I probably should have focused on is this 3 big pigs summons the 15/15s, and that's pretty strong. Now the Wombat actually probably gets worse when you have the 15/15s because summoning Wombat, or summoning a level 6 is sort of the point of that, and just summoning a single 15/15 is just nothing special. Same with Bear. Summoning 3 separate things is what you're looking for with the Bear, so just finding a way to summon 1 is not that great. Right here I think we just want to sell all our creatures. Oh, I don't know what. Oh, yeah, I'm selling 4 things and getting the Hercules. So I figured the Hercules only needs to get 4 hits in, and we no longer need the, I think, Lancelot in first place in the first position to get the Slay bonus off. And we're just trying to get a 6-cost treasure. We're just trying to hope that, even though we're only at 15 life, if we can just hold on for 2 more fights, win them, or keep them close. Although at this point, since everyone's at level 5 or 6, the minimum damage you're taking is 6, so it's hard to like keep them close enough for that to work. But right here, like Hercules can get 2 attacks off. It could get 3 if we get really lucky, but it puts us in a position where we might be able to trigger it in 2 rounds. Unfortunately, a ranged character doesn't, it needs to do damage, not just take damage. So we knock this person out, which means we're top 4. We're still trying to figure this, trigger this treasure. We're not really seeing anything we're excited about, although we're at sort of a point where it's like not clear what we're looking for. The Berenstein, because we replaced all of our spawns, the Berenstein's not going to get a lot of value. I take the princess here because she'll summon 3 15/15s. And I think at this point, and this actually is sort of a recurring theme in my video, that I don't think I can win this game. I'm just trying to hold on long enough to beat a couple more people. So I'm just trying to sell out of, I'm just trying to, 15/15 is big, but it's only big for a while. Like it's bigger than about half of our characters that we have here. So my thinking is that if I can just build a comp that summons a bunch of 15/15s, I have a decent shot of And unfortunately, you can't. So even the things that can cast a spell in it and allows you to keep casting, you can't cast it after you've already cast a spell. So I keep the gold here because it's basically just a free spell cast, and then getting the free gold pays for the roll. So that's why I freeze it here, just because you get the +2/+1, and if I ever find a Storm Mage, maybe it will be nice, but it's sort of a marginal play. So I get the trigger off. Oh no, I don't get the trigger. Oh, now okay, now I do get the trigger because I got lucky and attacked the one thing that works. So I got really lucky there. I get this slay trigger. They get some slay triggers. Sort of trade back and forth, but we're summoning a bunch of 15/15s, which one of the ranged characters can kill. Our first one gets +10, but yeah, so we're just summoning a bunch of 15/15s, which are eventually just going to kill their ranger, and then we finish them off. So now we're top 3. They pick some really. They only have early game. They have Dragon's Nest, so they have the Slay thing, which I think is level 2. Hercules goes up. I love the Ivory Owl. I probably go too much into it. Wand of Weirding is really good sometimes. I think I take this because I still think maybe I can combo off with the Crystal Ball, but I think that was probably a misplay. Not that the other one's super good, but um, just that like we don't really have a big need for anything. And like I said, because I'm not going for because I don't think like I'm going late game, I just start buying spells and trying to get the triggers. I'm really going for like a mid game push here. And I'd probably grab the Rod and Apple just because it helps me win the fight so much. It's probably about as good as this Disintegrate, which I end up buying, I believe. And I probably should have looked more into. So I don't know if when something summons the six cost Tree Folk right here might be good in this comp, depending on how stuff works when it gets summoned. At this point, I mean, we just have like a random dwarf sub theme, which is doing very little here. We're just trying to rely on the Ivory Owl making up people big over time, although there's not much time left. This person's board is really good. The Cupids are really good against us, just to send our guys into each other. But I mean, Cupid's pretty good against a lot of boards, anything with like similar sized characters. But we just summon a lot of 15/15s that are, difficult to beat for most boards. And we finish this person off, and we do exactly enough damage to get top 2. So now we're against the Mad Catter, who hasn't lost a match yet. Last time we saw them, I think we tied them, and they had no treasures, and we tied them. We don't have any Tree Folk to target, which is unfortunate. I should be looking at this Green Knight. I'm probably looking at this Knighthood, but Knighthood's so expensive, and upgrading stuff is really great, but you don't get the treasure. So if you're trying to upgrade, characters to get the treasures, and you just get the Green Knight instead, I think about buying this, but I realize that you don't get the double spawn off of it. So it's sort of like, what's the point? I mean, it's a 1/1 that summons a 15/15, which is fine, but we have a 13/15, so like, what's the marginal gain on that? But I guess it allows me to sort of take out the dwarf support and put in something that does, I mean, maybe you can get a slay trigger and maybe can do some other stuff. It allows me to rearrange so that I put my spawners near the end, which means there's more likely to be a chance of a clear board. Although they only need 3 spots, and if our front isn't cleared, then the fight isn't really close. Although in this case, they actually attack our backline right away because they have a dragon. So this is like the one time that it would have mattered. Fortunately, we get an attack such that they don't get the slay bonus. What this trigger? It's actually they're up to 41 now, which is funny. So they have their slays trigger attack twice. They have this character that grows off slays, but we just put a lot of 15s on the board, which ranged are good against because they don't trade into things as much. They can just free roll things. So we have a Storm Mage here, which I think I probably buy just because it's big. And then I'm trying to just figure out what to target here. I'm surprised I didn't consider the Oh, I guess I didn't have 4 health, but the Storm Mage is about like a 50, 58, 58, which is just big. I mean, it's just, sometimes you just put in a bundle of stats. Everything grows +2, +2. We're sort of just trying to put pile stats on the board. We're not going for many synergies here. We we have sort of treasure synergies, like we have characters that synergize well with our treasures, but none of our characters really do anything with each other. So we're just trying to cast spells, which procs on Merlin, even though the 3 stat, +2, +1, isn't super significant this late in the game. Just given this, I mean, we're going to get +2, +2 on every character every round, so sort of worrying about the marginal bonus for buying like a random spell isn't much. But we also want to, we want to start buying better spells. We want to buy like pig morphs rather than try to target our minions. So we'd love to triple something and just get rid of, some of our this bad characters not doing anything. I mean, this Yomagon being tripled and getting an attack for where it possibly gets +40, +40 is really bad for us. Luckily, we have it attack the thing it dies to, and from here, because our things are still able to kill some of these in one hit, and we're just able to put a couple more things on the board just to overwhelm them. We're able to get the win again. Did 2 to them. So I don't know exactly what it does, if it doubles the effect of your things get your slay minions attack twice. I don't know if that means they attack 3 times, because it doesn't say they get an additional attack, so doubling it may or may not mean anything. It's not super clear. Here, I don't even know what we're looking for. I mean, the princess, we could get one that becomes bigger. We could try to triple the mama bear right here, which I think is what I start going for, just because our crystal ball treasure is not very good, so getting a level 5 treasure could be an improvement. I'm considering just stopping it here to pay 1 for a random spell. That's sort of the debate I'm having right now. I'm not sure if that's good. We've gotten us up to 17 health just by buying the little mini health pots. Not sure what those are called. I'm still trying to learn the names of everything. I know some of them. And, other than that, we're just letting our characters grow every turn. It doesn't look like they have the archer that gains off every slay, so they're gaining some permanent stats, but a lot of their things are just temporary. So they get the pig morph on one of our better characters, but they don't get that slay. This attacks the one thing that it can in our front line that it can kill, and then gets the second one. So we're just completely locked out here of killing their characters, because it's going to get enough attacks and it grows every time it attacks. If it was just sort of an attrition thing, we might be able to put enough 15/15s on the board to get through it, but because it keeps growing, like it has, just gained, 200 health or whatever it is. So we're not going to be able to kill it. And we're taking 9, 10, we're taking 16, so getting that extra health actually saved us. I don't know how many extra healths we've bought so far this game, but it's affected it. I think we're just thinking of switching this in for the little pigs. And I think I might just stop here and get the disintegrate. The one thing to think about there is the pig morph there was really bad for us, and they got the best attack. I don't know what exactly. Oh, so my thought here is that the pumpkin. I don't know if the Balers are actually evil monsters, but basically, since we summon 15/15s, the pumpkin is likely going to spawn if it's by the time it gets killed. If it's not just sniped right away, and if it's sniped right away, it's only going to summon one character anyways because we have one space. If it's killed last, the pumpkin will probably spawn more 15/15s than the princess. And I finally put the storm mage earlier on, and I finally figured out that the princess is probably better than the dwarf, just because it's more likely to summon more 15/15s. Basically, we need to kill the Yomagon before it gets slays. So if we hit it once, even if we trade 2 characters into it, even if we hit it once and then it hits something but doesn't get the slay, that's fine. We'll take that. Them picking that is annoying. I think it's the second time we've disintegrated that. Luckily, the second spell hits Both their spells hit things we don't care about, which is nice. We get a nice attack on that. Their Apple Bomb attacks into our character, which is always nice, because then it doesn't get set to 1 health. And we're able to just finish this off and do 14. So now it's at the situation where, like, they might not die if we hit them again, but there's a decent shot that they do. So I probably should have bought that that spell and targeted our minion, because we can still buy like a pig wolf. Although I think I'm just saying, yeah, I think I go for a 6 treasure here. Although it's not even clear that it's good, because we lose our second. We lose the second spawner at this point. So my thinking here is just that if we buff everything, we prevent them from getting the Gormagon, or Yomagon. I'm never going to pronounce that correctly, unfortunately. Trigger. And I think my thinking here is that if we sell all these things, we can keep a princess that has a decent. We want to keep high attack things in front. And we should probably keep this. I probably want that in front, actually, because we want everything in front to be able to kill their Slay character, the Yomagon, that gets plus 40 plus 40. Because as long as that doesn't get plus 40 plus 40, we seem to win these fights. So at current, that's our strategy, is just to try to present a front where everything. And if I should have known exactly how much attack that had, or how much health it had. It looked like it had about 43. So as long as our front row had 43 health, we're in good shape. And you see here that their characters just aren't big enough. We summon too many characters, and our front line just will kill whatever. And it looks like we'll take this down, especially since we get the spawns, which would give us an extra 3. It looked like we didn't need it, but so we take down another game, which is pretty cool. We're just at 2600, so we're not super high elo yet. I think this is sort of one of the early recordings we had, but it's good. It's good to get a win, obviously, and it was nice that sort of buying those health potions, the little edge, ended up being what mattered. You can see there, though, even so, if our opponent got good attacks, I don't know why they didn't put their Yomagon like first, although it looked like it wasn't going to take down any of our front line, so maybe it just didn't matter. But it was sort of a situation where if they got that Slay trigger, then they win the fight. So even at the end, even though we won, a lot of it comes down to luck, and we just happened to get the good luck a couple of those fights. I mean, we had to beat them. I think they were at 40 health, and we were at, I think it was like 40 to 14, and then we beat them in 5 out of 6 or whatever it was. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this again. After this, I think all the recordings are well on playing, so it's a little more my thought. I'm not trying to sort of guess what I was doing at the time. I'm just sort of thinking in real time, so I think that makes for a better video. But I just wanted to record these last 2 because I had them, and I think they were pretty fun games. Thanks.